Jae-woo wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the tool in front of him. The wrench was old, but it worked well. He had been fixing things on the Luna trade station for 8 years now. Every day was the same. Repair broken pipes, fix air filters, and make sure the lights stayed on. It was not exciting work, but it paid well enough to support his family. His daughter Hye-jin was sick again today. She had missed school because her body could not process food properly. The doctors called it a metabolic disorder. Jae-woo did not understand all the big words, but he knew it made his little girl weak and tired. His son Tae-min was helping her with homework when Jae-woo left for work that morning. The station was busy today. Ships came and went, bringing traders from all over the galaxy. Most were human ships, but sometimes alien vessels docked too. Jae-woo had worked on a few alien ships before. Their technology was different, but pipes were pipes and engines were engines. Everything needed fixing sooner or later. The alarm started ringing at exactly 14:30. Jae-woo looked up from the air recycler he was repairing. Red lights flashed in the hallway. The station's computer voice spoke clearly. Emergency. All personnel to stations. Incoming vessel in distress. Jae-woo dropped his tools and ran to the main observation deck. Through the large windows he could see a massive ship approaching. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The hull was dark purple and seemed to glow from within. Strange patterns covered its surface, and it moved in an odd flowing way that made Jae-woo feel dizzy to watch. "What is that thing?" asked Mi-young, another mechanic who had arrived beside him. "Velthari ship," said Chief Engineer So-young Lee, walking up behind them. "First time we've had one here. They're usually too proud to visit human stations." The ship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the biggest human vessel, but something was very wrong with it. Dark smoke poured from several openings along its side. The glow from its hull flickered like a dying light bulb. As it got closer, Jae-woo could hear a deep humming sound that seemed to shake the station walls. "It's going to crash," Mi-young whispered. The ship suddenly stopped moving forward. It hung in space near the station, but Jae-woo could see it was shaking. More smoke appeared, and the humming sound got louder and more irregular. "All engineering teams to Docking Bay 5, So-young's voice came over the speakers. "We have a Code Red situation." Jae-woo had never worked on a Code Red before. It meant people might die if they did not act quickly. He grabbed his tool bag and ran to the docking bay. The alien ship barely fit in the largest bay. Up close, it was even more strange. The purple hull was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Curved lines ran across its surface, and some areas looked almost like living tissue. A section of the ship's wall opened, but not like a normal door. It stretched and expanded like a mouth. Several tall figures emerged. They were clearly not human. They stood over 7 feet tall and had 4 arms each. Their skin was pale blue-gray, and their faces were long and narrow. They wore clothes that looked like they were made from the same material as their ship. The aliens looked around the docking bay with obvious disgust. One of them, who wore more decorations than the others, stepped forward and spoke in accented English. "I am Commander Bora of the Velthari Imperial Fleet. Our vessel requires immediate assistance. However, we will only accept aid from your most skilled engineers." Chief Engineer So-young stepped forward. "I'm So-young Lee, Head of Engineering. We'll do everything we can to help." Commander Bora looked at the human engineers with doubt in her strange silver eyes. "Your technology is primitive, but we have no choice. Our ship is dying, and we cannot reach the next Velthari outpost." "What's wrong with it?" So-young asked. "The biomechanical systems are failing. The ship's living components are rejecting. The mechanical ones. Our engineers cannot determine the cause." Jae-woo had never heard of biomechanical systems before. He looked at the ship's hull again and realized what had seemed like decoration was actually some kind of living material mixed with metal and other substances he could not identify. Dr. Woo-jin Park, the station's chief medical officer, approached the group. "Are there any injuries? Do you need medical assistance?" Commander Bora's expression became even more cold. "Velthari do not accept medical aid from lesser species. We have our own doctors." "Lesser species?" Dr. Park looked offended. She means humans, So Young said quietly. The Velthari think they're better than everyone else. More aliens emerged from the ship. Some looked like engineers based on the tools they carried. Others appeared to be soldiers. All of them seemed worried, though they tried to hide it. We need to see the engine room, So Young told Commander Bo-Ra. Very well, but only 3 of your people, and they must follow our rules exactly. So Young chose herself, another senior engineer named Chan Ho, and surprisingly, Jae-woo. Why me? Jae-woo asked. Because you're good at seeing things others miss, So Young replied. And because you ask good questions. Inside the ship, everything felt alive. The walls were warm and seemed to breathe. The floor had a soft, spongy texture that made walking feel strange. Lights grew from the ceiling like glowing plants. The air smelled like flowers and machine oil mixed together. The engine room was enormous. Giant tubes filled with glowing liquid connected to metal structures that hummed and sparked. But many of the tubes were dark and several of the metal parts were smoking or making grinding noises. Jae-woo stared at the system in amazement. It was like nothing he had ever seen. The living parts and the mechanical parts seemed to work together, like organs in a body. But now something was making them fight each other. A Velthari engineer approached them. The biofilters are producing toxins instead of cleaning the system. The mechanical components are overheating because the organic cooling system is failing. We have tried everything, but the cascade failure continues to spread. Jae-woo listened carefully. Cascade failure, that term sounded familiar. Where had he heard it before? Then he remembered. Dr. Kim, Hyejin's doctor, had used those same words when explaining her condition. When one part of her body's processing system failed, it caused other parts to fail too, like dominoes falling in a line. He looked at the failing ship systems again. The pattern was the same. Just like his daughter's body, the ship was slowly poisoning itself. But the Velthari engineers were only looking at the mechanical problems. They were not considering that this might be a medical issue as much as a technical one. Jae-woo opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. Who was he to question alien engineers who had technology far beyond anything humans had built? But as he watched the ship's condition get worse, he could not shake the feeling that he was missing something important. Something that might save, not just the ship, but whoever was on it. The humming sound grew weaker and more lights went dark. Time was running out. Jae-woo could not sleep that night. He kept thinking about the Velthari ship and its strange failing systems. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the dark tubes and smoking metal parts. The image reminded him of something, but he could not figure out what. He got up quietly and walked to Hyejin's room. She was sleeping peacefully now, but earlier that evening she had been sick again. Her body could not break down certain foods properly, and the waste products made her feel terrible. Dr. Kim had explained it many times, but Jae-woo still found it confusing. The enzymes that should clean her system are not working correctly, the doctor had said. Instead of helping, they create toxins that make her sicker. It's a cascade failure. One problem causes another problem, which causes another. Jae-woo stood in his daughter's doorway and suddenly understood. The ship's biofilters were like Hyejin's enzymes. They were supposed to clean the system, but instead they were making poison. The mechanical and living parts were fighting each other, just like the different systems in his daughter's body. He wanted to go back to the station immediately, but it was the middle of the night. Instead, he spent the remaining hours reading everything he could find about metabolic disorders on his tablet. Most of it was too complicated, but he began to see patterns. The next morning, Jae-woo arrived at the station early. The Velthari ship was still in the docking bay, but it looked worse. The purple glow was much dimmer, and he could hear the humming sound was irregular and weak. Any progress, Mayakurs? He asked Mi-young. She shook her head. The Velthari engineers worked all night, but nothing helped. If anything, the ship is getting worse faster now. Jae-woo walked around the ship's exterior, studying the hull. Up close, he could see that the living parts were changing color. What had been healthy purple tissue was now turning gray and black in places. It looked infected. Inside the ship, the situation was even more serious. Several Velthari crew members were sitting or lying down, looking exhausted. Their pale blue-gray skin had a sickly yellow tint, and their movements were slow and unsteady. "Commander Bora," Jaewu said, approaching the tall alien. "Your crew looks unwell." Bora's silver eyes flashed with anger. "Velthari warriors do not show weakness. We are simply tired from working on repairs." But Jaewu could see it was more than tiredness. He had seen the same signs in Hyejin during her worst episodes. The crew members were showing symptoms of systemic poisoning. In the engine room, things were worse. 2 more biofilter tubes had gone dark during the night. The Velthari chief engineer, who introduced himself as Dr. Sung Ho, was frantically trying different solutions. "We have replaced the mechanical components 3 times, Dr. Sung Ho told So Young, but the organic systems continue to reject them. It is as if the ship's body is attacking itself." "Like an autoimmune disease," Jaewu said quietly. Dr. Sung Ho looked at him with surprise. "What did you say?" "Nothing. Just thinking out loud." But So Young had heard him too. "What do you mean, autoimmune disease?" Jaewu felt embarrassed. These were trained engineers and doctors talking about advanced alien technology. What could a simple mechanic add to the conversation? "It's probably nothing," he said. "But my daughter has a medical condition where her body's cleaning systems don't work right. Instead of helping, they make toxins that make her sick. The way you described the ship's problem sounds similar." Dr. Sung Ho made a dismissive gesture with 2 of his forearms. "This is a technological issue, not a medical one. Human medicine could never understand Velthari biomechanical integration." "But what if it's both?" Jaewu persisted. "What if the ship is actually sick, not just broken?" "Ridiculous." Dr. Sung Ho turned away. However, So Young looked thoughtful. "Show me what you mean, Jaewu." Jaewu pointed to one of the failing biofilter tubes. "Look at the pattern. The darkest parts are where the living tissue connects to the mechanical components. It's like the organic parts are trying to reject the artificial ones." "That is normal integration stress," Dr. Sung Ho said. "All biomechanical systems experience some rejection. But not like this," Jaewu argued. "This looks like what happens to my daughter when her body can't process certain proteins. The waste products build up and poison everything around them." So Young studied the tube more carefully. "The discoloration does follow the nutrient flow lines," she said slowly. "And it's spreading in the same pattern as the mechanical failures." Dr. Sung Ho looked annoyed. "You are seeing connections that do not exist. The ship's biosystems are the most advanced in the galaxy. They do not get sick like primitive organic life forms." At that moment, another Velthari engineer approached them. This one was younger and looked very worried. "Dr. Sung Ho," the young engineer said, "the VIP patient's condition is worsening rapidly. Dr. Yuri requests your immediate assistance in the medical bay." "VIP patient?" So Young asked. Dr. Sung Ho looked uncomfortable. "We carry an important passenger who has been unwell for some time. It is not your concern." "What are their symptoms?" Jaewu asked. "I told you it is not your concern." Dr. Sung Ho's voice was sharp, but the young engineer looked frightened enough to ignore protocol. "Metabolic cascade failure," he said quickly. "The same symptoms the ship is showing, but in living tissue." Dr. Sung Ho made an angry sound and spoke rapidly in the Velthari language. The young engineer's skin turned even paler, but he had already said too much. Jaewu felt his heart racing. "A VIP passenger with metabolic cascade failure showing the same symptoms as the ship. It could not be a coincidence. I need to see the patient," he said. "Absolutely not," Dr. Sung Ho replied. "No human will contaminate our sacred medical bay. But if I'm right about the connection between the ship's problems and medical issues, then your passenger and your ship might have the same illness. Treating one might help both." "Impossible. You know nothing about Velthari physiology." "No," Jaewu agreed. "But I know about metabolic disorders. And I know about systems that poison themselves when they can't process waste properly." So Young put her hand on Jaewu's shoulder. "Even if you're right, They won't let us near their medical bay. Cultural taboos. Then people might die because of pride, Jae-woo said, thinking of his daughter and how close they had come to losing her before finding the right treatment. Commander Bo-ra had been listening to the conversation. Now she spoke quietly to Dr. Sung-ho in their own language. Jae-woo could not understand the words, but he could hear the urgency in her voice. Dr. Sung-ho's response sounded like an argument. Other Velthari crew members joined the discussion. Voices were raised and gestures became more animated. Finally, Commander Bo-ra turned back to the humans. Our passenger is very important to our people, more important than our pride. If you truly believe you can help, I believe the ship and your passenger have the same problem, Jae-woo said, and I think I know how to fix it, but I'll need to see both the medical data and the ship's biosystem readings. This goes against everything we believe about contamination from lesser species, Dr. Sung-ho said bitterly. Then maybe it's time to believe something new, Commander Bo-ra replied. Before we lose everything that matters. The ship's humming grew weaker, and another section of the hull lost its glow. Whatever was happening was accelerating. Time was running out for both the ship and its mysterious important passenger. The Velthari medical bay was unlike anything Jae-woo had ever imagined. The walls curved and flowed like the inside of a giant shell. Soft blue light came from everywhere and nowhere, making the room feel peaceful despite the crisis. Medical equipment grew from the floor and ceiling like strange metal trees, their branches reaching toward the center of the room. In the middle of it all was a bed that seemed to be made from the same living material as the ship's hull. On the bed lay a figure that made Jae-woo catch his breath. The patient was clearly female, but she was larger and more regal than the other Velthari he had met. Her skin had the same blue-gray color, but it was marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift and move in the soft light. Empress Dalneem, Commander Bo-ra said quietly. The ruler of our entire civilization. Jae-woo stared in shock. They had been hiding an Empress on the ship. No wonder everyone seemed so desperate and frightened. Dr. Yuri, the ship's chief medical officer, was working frantically at a control panel that grew from the wall near the Empress's bed. She was younger than Dr. Sung-ho and seemed more willing to try new approaches. The Empress has been sick for 6 months, Dr. Yuri explained to Jae-woo and So-young. Our best doctors believe she has a degenerative disease that cannot be cured. Her body's systems are failing one after another. Jae-woo looked at the readings on the medical displays. Even though the symbols were alien, the patterns were familiar. He had seen similar charts in Dr. Kim's office when Hyejin was at her sickest. These numbers, he said, pointing at the screen. They show the same pattern as my daughter's worst episodes. Look, this measurement spikes, then this one falls, then this one goes crazy. It's a cascade failure. Dr. Yuri studied the human carefully. You have medical training? No, but my 8-year-old daughter has a metabolic disorder. I've learned to recognize the signs. Jae-woo paused, then asked the question that had been bothering him since yesterday. When did the Empress first become sick? 6 months ago, shortly after we installed the new biomechanical systems on the ship. And when did the ship's problems start? Dr. Yuri looked confused. The ship problem started 3 days ago. No, Jae-woo said firmly. The obvious problem started 3 days ago. But I bet if you check your maintenance logs, you'll find small issues going back months. Problems that seemed unrelated and weren't serious enough to worry about. Dr. Sung-ho had joined them in the medical bay, though he clearly did not want to be there. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that the Empress and the ship are connected in ways you haven't considered. The ship's biomechanical systems don't just power the vessel, they're part of a larger biological network that includes the Empress. That is impossible, Dr. Sung-ho said. The Empress is not directly connected to the ship's systems. Maybe, not directly, Jae-woo agreed. But what if she's part of the same biological ecosystem? What if the ship's living components and the Empress share some kind of metabolic process? Dr. Yuri looked thoughtful. The biomechanical systems do use nutrients that are similar to what we find in Velthari biology, and the Empress has always had a special connection to our ships Superstition, Dr. Sung-ho muttered. But Commander Bo-ra was listening intently. In our oldest traditions, it is said that the Empress and her ship are one being. We always thought it was just poetry. Jae-woo walked closer to the Empress's bed. Even unconscious, she had a dignity and strength that made him want to bow, but more importantly, he could see signs that reminded him painfully of his daughter's worst days. "Look at her skin color," he said to Dr. Yuri. "Around the silver patterns. Do you see how it's yellower than it should be?" "Yes. We believe it is part of the disease progression." "It's not disease progression. It's toxin buildup. The same toxins that are poisoning the ship's biofilters." So-young had been quietly studying the medical equipment. "Jae-woo, look at this display. It's showing chemical compositions in the Empress's blood. Some of these compounds match what we found in the ship's failing biofilters." Dr. Yuri quickly checked her readings. That cannot be correct. Let me run the analysis again." While they waited, Jae-woo continued his examination of the Empress. Her breathing was shallow and irregular, just like Hee-jin's during a bad episode. Her hands, which had 4 long fingers instead of 5, showed the same slight tremor that Jae-woo had learned to watch for in his daughter. "Dr. Yuri," he said quietly, "what treatments have you tried for the Empress?" "Everything. Nutrient supplements, cellular repair therapy, genetic stabilization, system purging." "System purging?" Jae-woo looked up sharply. "When did you do that?" 3 days ago. It was our last desperate attempt to clean the toxins from her system. 3 days ago, So-young said slowly. The same day, the ship's problems became critical. Dr. Sung-ho was beginning to look less confident. "You are suggesting that treating the Empress somehow caused the ship's failures?" "Not caused," Jae-woo corrected. "But maybe when you purged the Empress's system, you disrupted a biological balance that the ship depends on, like removing a vital organ from a body." The analysis results appeared on Dr. Yuri's screen. Her 4 hands moved quickly over the Yao, controls, checking and double-checking the data. "The compounds match," she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "The toxins in the Empress's blood are identical to the ones poisoning the ship's biofilters." "Which means?" Commander Bo-ra asked. "Which means they're the same illness," Jae-woo said. "The ship isn't just broken and the Empress isn't just sick. They're both suffering from the same metabolic disorder." Dr. Sung-ho sat down heavily on one of the medical stools. "If that is true, then everything we have done to help the Empress may have made the ship worse. And everything we have done to repair the ship may have made the Empress worse," Dr. Yuri finished. "We have been treating the symptoms separately instead of treating the disease as a whole." Jae-woo nodded. "Just like with my daughter. For months, her doctors kept treating each symptom individually. Her stomach problems, her fatigue, her skin issues, her concentration problems. It wasn't until Dr. Kim realized they were all part of one big metabolic disorder that we could start to help her." "But how do we treat a metabolic disorder that affects both an organic being and a biomechanical ship?" Commander Bo-ra asked. "The same way we treat any metabolic disorder," Jae-woo said. "We figure out what's causing the cascade failure and we interrupt the cycle." So-young was studying the ship's technical displays. "If Jae-woo is right, then we need to look at the Empress and the ship as one integrated system. But I don't understand Velthari biology well enough to know where to start. And I don't understand human medicine well enough to know if your treatments could work on our people," Dr. Yuri admitted. "Then we need someone who understands both," Jae-woo said. "Dr. Park, the station's medical officer, has worked with alien physiology before, and I know about metabolic disorders from dealing with Hee-jin's condition." Dr. Sung-ho shook his head. "Even if you are correct about the connection between the Empress and the ship, Velthari biology is far too complex for human medicine to comprehend." "Maybe," Jae-woo said. "But human medicine might see things that Velthari medicine misses, just like I saw the pattern that your engineers missed." The Empress stirred slightly on her bed. Her eyes opened for a moment, revealing silver irises that seemed to glow with inner light. She looked directly at Jae-woo, and he felt as if she was seeing into his soul. Then her eyes closed again, and Her breathing became even more labored. At the same moment, the lights in the medical bay flickered and they could all hear the ship's humming sound grow weaker. "She's connected to the ship," Commander Bora whispered. "When she weakens, it weakens." "Then we don't have much time," Jae-woo said. "We need to start treatment for both of them right now, before we lose them both." Dr. Yuri looked at Dr. Sung-ho. "We have tried everything our medical science knows. If there is even a small chance that human methods might help, it goes against everything we believe about the purity of Velthari medicine," Dr. Sung-ho said. "Our beliefs won't matter if our Empress dies," Commander Bora replied firmly. "Get the human doctor. We will try their methods." As if responding to their decision, the ship's lights grew a little brighter and the Empress's breathing seemed to ease slightly. There was still hope. Dr. Woo-jin Park stood in the Velthari medical bay, looking overwhelmed and amazed at the same time. He had treated many different alien species during his years on the trade station, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Empress lay before him, her silver-marked skin growing paler by the hour, while displays around the room showed readings he could barely understand. "This is incredible," Dr. Park said, studying the medical data. "Her physiology is unlike anything I've ever seen." But Jae-woo is right. These patterns are definitely consistent with systemic metabolic poisoning. Dr. Yuri worked beside him, translating Velthari medical terms into human language. Despite her initial reluctance to work with human doctors, she had become eager to try new approaches as her Empress grew weaker. "The Empress's biochemistry is more complex than human biology," she explained. "We have 3 separate circulatory systems, and our cellular energy production works differently, but the basic problem seems to be the same. Her body is producing toxins faster than it can eliminate them." Jae-woo stood near the Empress's bed, watching her breathing. It reminded him painfully of the night 6 months ago when Hye-jin had almost died. The same shallow breaths, the same pale coloring, the same sense that time was running out. "Has anyone checked the ship's biofilter composition against the Empress's blood chemistry?" he asked. So Young was monitoring the ship's systems from a portable control station. "I'm comparing them now. The results are strange." "Strange how?" "The ship's biofilters are producing waste compounds that are almost identical to what we're seeing in the Empress's blood. But here's the weird part. The ship's systems are designed to process those exact compounds. It's like the Empress's body is supposed to supply the raw materials for the ship's biological functions." Dr. Sung-ho had been silent for most of the discussion, but now he spoke up reluctantly. "There are old stories about the connection between the Imperial bloodline and our bioships. We always thought they were legends." "What kind of stories?" Commander Bora asked. "That the first emperors made a pact with the ship spirits. Their life force would power our greatest vessels, and in return the ships would carry our people to the stars." Dr. Sung-ho looked embarrassed. "Primitive superstition, we thought." "Maybe not so primitive," Dr. Park said, studying his readings. "If the Empress's metabolism is actually designed to support the ship's biomechanical systems, then they would be part of the same biological network. When one part of the network fails, it affects everything else." Jae-woo walked over to look at So Young's displays. "So what caused the original failure? Something must have started this cascade 6 months ago." Dr. Yuri checked her medical logs. 6 months ago, we installed new biomechanical integration systems throughout the ship. The technology was more advanced than anything we had used before, and the Empress became sick right after the installation, within days, but we never connected the 2 events. So Young frowned at her readings. "These new biomechanical systems, they're designed to be more efficient, right? They process biological materials faster and more completely than the old systems." "Exactly. They were supposed to make our ships more powerful and responsive." "But what if they're too efficient?" Jae-woo asked. "What if they're processing the Empress's biological output faster than her body can produce it safely?" Dr. Park looked up from his analysis. "That would explain everything. If the ship's systems are demanding more biological materials than the Empress can safely provide, her body would start breaking down its own tissues to meet the demand. The waste products from that breakdown would poison both her system and the ship's biofilters. Like my daughter's body when it can't get the right nutrients, Jae-woo said. It starts consuming muscle tissue and producing toxins that make everything worse. Dr. Yuri was rapidly checking data from the past 6 months. The pattern fits. The Empress's condition has been getting worse at exactly the same rate as the ship's biosystems have been becoming more efficient. So how do we fix it? Commander Bo-Ra asked. We need to break the cycle, Dr. Park said. Reduce the demand on the Empress's system while simultaneously clearing the toxins from both her body and the ship's biofilters. That's easier said than done, So Young warned. The ship's biomechanical systems are integrated into everything. Life support, propulsion, navigation, even basic lighting. If we shut them down to reduce the demand on the Empress, the ship dies. And if we don't, the Empress dies, Dr. Yuri said quietly. Jae-woo thought about Haejin's treatment. When my daughter was really sick, the doctors had to be very careful about the order they did things in. They couldn't just stop the bad process all at once, because her body needed time to adjust. They had to gradually replace the toxic cycle with a healthy one. What do you mean? Dr. Park asked. We need to give the ship's biosystem something else to process while the Empress recovers. Something that won't poison the filters, but will keep the ship functioning. Dr. Sung-ho looked skeptical. What could possibly substitute for the Empress's biological output? The ship's systems are specifically designed to work with imperial biochemistry. Human biochemistry, Jae-woo said suddenly. Dr. Yuri, you said Velthari physiology is more complex than human physiology, right? What if that complexity is the problem? What if we give the ship's system something simpler to process? You're suggesting we hook a human up to an alien bioship? So Young asked. That sounds incredibly dangerous. Not hook up directly, Jae-woo clarified. But what if we could create a synthetic substitute using human biological materials as a base? Something simple enough not to overload the system, but compatible enough to keep the ship running. Dr. Park was already checking his medical supplies. I have samples of various human biological compounds. If we could analyze exactly what the ship's systems need. This is madness, Dr. Sung-ho said. You are talking about feeding human biological matter to sacred Velthari technology. I'm talking about saving your Empress's life, Jae-woo replied firmly. My daughter almost died because doctors were too proud to try treatments that seemed too simple or too different. Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects. Commander Bo-Ra looked at the Empress, whose breathing had become even more labored. How long would this treatment take? With Haejin, it took several days to break the toxic cycle and establish healthy metabolism again, Jae-woo said. But every hour we wait makes it harder. Dr. Yuri was running calculations on her medical computer. If we gradually replace the Empress's biological output with a synthetic substitute, her body should have time to clear the toxins and restore normal function. Meanwhile, the ship's biosystems could adapt to processing the simpler compounds. And, if it doesn't work? Dr. Sung-ho asked. Then we're no worse off than we are now, Commander Bo-Ra said. But if it does work, we save both the Empress and the ship. Dr. Park was already preparing equipment. I'll need detailed scans of both the Empress's current biochemistry and the ship's biofilter requirements. And Jae-woo, I'll need you to help me understand the metabolic patterns you've observed. What about me? So Young asked. We'll need to monitor the ship's systems constantly during the treatment. Any sudden changes could be dangerous for both the Empress and the crew. As they prepared to begin the complex treatment, the Empress opened her eyes again. This time, she looked directly at Dr. Park and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Human doctor, she said in accented English. If your medicine can save my people's ship and my life, then your species will always have a place of honor among the Velthari. Then her eyes closed again, and her breathing became so shallow that Jae-woo feared they might already be too late. We start now, Dr. Park said firmly, before we lose her entirely. The most critical phase of the treatment was about to begin. The next 12 hours were the longest of Jae-woo's life. The treatment had to be done in stages, like performing surgery on 2 patients at the same time while they shared the same bloodstream. One wrong move could kill both the Empress and destroy the ship. Dr. Park worked steadily, his hands moving between human medical equipment and alien biosystems that seemed to grow and change as he watched. He had created a synthetic biological compound based on human blood chemistry, but simplified enough that the ship's over-efficient biofilters could process it without creating toxins. Starting Phase 1, Dr. Park announced, introducing the substitute compound to the ship's secondary biosystems. So Young monitored her displays carefully. Ship's biofilters are accepting the new compound. Toxin levels are holding steady, not getting worse. It was not much progress, but it was the first good news they had received in days. Dr. Yuri checked the Empress's vital signs. Her condition is stable, not improving yet, but not getting worse either. Jae-woo stood beside the Empress's bed, watching her breathe. He thought about Hyejin at home, probably doing her homework with Taemin's help. His daughter had survived her metabolic crisis because doctors had been willing to try new approaches. Now he was watching the same kind of treatment being used to save an alien Empress. Phase 2, Dr. Park said 4 hours later. Reducing the demand on the Empress's biological systems while increasing the substitute compound. This was the most dangerous part. If they reduced the connection between the Empress and the ship too quickly, the ship's biosystems might shut down entirely. But if they did it too slowly, the Empress would continue to be poisoned. Ship's primary biosystems are responding well, So Young reported. Power levels are stable and the toxin production is decreasing. Empress's blood chemistry is improving, Dr. Yuri said with barely controlled excitement. The toxin levels are dropping for the first time in months, but the treatment was taking its toll on everyone involved. Dr. Park had been working for 16 hours straight. Dr. Yuri was exhausted from constantly monitoring both human and Velthari medical equipment. So Young had not left her station, afraid that any break in monitoring could cause disaster. How much longer? Commander Bora asked. She had been standing guard over the entire process, ready to make difficult decisions if something went wrong. We're at the critical point now, Dr. Park said. Phase 3, full transition to the substitute compound. If this works, the Empress's body should start healing itself. Jae-woo watched the displays showing both the ship's condition and the Empress's vital signs. The patterns reminded him of the night Hyejin had finally turned the corner. The numbers had looked confusing and scary right up until the moment everything suddenly started getting better. Beginning full transition, Dr. Park announced. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship's humming sound, which had been weak and irregular for days, began to strengthen. The lights in the medical bay grew brighter. The wall displays showed system after system coming back online. The biofilters are working properly again, So Young said with wonder in her voice. They're processing the substitute compound cleanly, with no toxic byproducts. Dr. Yuri was staring at her medical readings. The Empress's vital signs are improving. Her body is finally able to clear the toxins that have been poisoning her for months. The Empress opened her eyes. For the first time since Jae-woo had met her, they were clear and focused. She looked around the medical bay, taking in the strange sight of humans and Velthari working together over equipment that had never been designed for such cooperation. How do you feel? Dr. Yuri asked in the Velthari language. The Empress responded in the same language, then switched to English. Better, much better. The pain that has been with me for so long is fading. She sat up slowly, assisted by Dr. Yuri. Even though she was still weak, Jae-woo could see the strength returning to her movements. Her skin was regaining its healthy blue-gray color, and the silver patterns seemed to shine more brightly. The ship feels different too, Empress Dalneem said. For months it has been like carrying a great weight. Now it feels free. Commander Bora bowed deeply. Your Imperial Majesty, the humans have saved your life and our ship. Their medicine succeeded where ours failed. Not just their medicine, the Empress corrected. Their willingness to see connections that we missed. Their courage to try approaches that seemed impossible. She looked directly at Jae-woo. You are the mechanic who first recognized the truth. Jae-woo felt embarrassed by her attention. I just remembered what I learned from my daughter's illness. The patterns were similar. Your daughter has the same condition? A human version of it, yes. But she's doing much better now that we understand how to treat it. The Empress nodded slowly. Then perhaps our peoples can help each other. Velthari biomedical technology might benefit your daughter, while human metabolic medicine might help other Velthari who suffer from similar disorders. Dr. Sung-ho, who had been quiet throughout the treatment, finally spoke up. Your Imperial Majesty, I must apologize. I nearly let pride and tradition prevent us from accepting the help we needed. Pride and tradition have their place, Empress, Dalnim replied. But wisdom knows when to set them aside for a greater good. Today we learned that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected sources. Over the next few days, as the Empress continued to recover and the ship's systems returned to full health, the changes went beyond just medical improvements. The Velthari crew began working alongside human engineers, sharing knowledge and techniques that benefited both species. Jae-woo found himself teaching Velthari engineers about human problem-solving approaches, how to look for patterns across different systems, how to consider medical solutions for technical problems, and how to value simple observations as much as complex theories. In return, the Velthari taught the humans about biomechanical integration, showing them how living systems and artificial technology could work together in ways they had never imagined. This changes everything, So-young told Jae-woo as they watched Velthari and human engineers working together in the engine room. The applications for biomechanical technology in human ships could revolutionize space travel, and human metabolic medicine could help us treat disorders that have plagued our people. For generations, Dr. Yuri added. She had requested permission to remain on the station for several months to continue collaborating with Dr. Park, but the most important change was simpler and more personal. When the Velthari ship finally departed, Empress Dalnim carried with her a small medical device that Dr. Park had designed specifically for her condition. It would monitor her biochemistry and adjust the ship's systems automatically to prevent future cascade failures. In return, she left behind a biomedical scanner that could help diagnose metabolic disorders in humans with far greater precision than anything Earth's doctors had ever possessed. This will help Hee-jin and thousands of other children like her, Dr. Park told Jae-woo as they examined the alien device. Jae-woo thought about his daughter, who would soon benefit from technology that existed because a human mechanic had been willing to see connections that others missed, and because an alien empress had been willing to trust in human medicine when her own people's treatments failed. Sometimes the most important discoveries came not from laboratories or research stations, but from the simple act of one person caring enough to notice when something was wrong and refusing to give up until they found a way to help. 3 months later, Jae-woo received a message from the Velthari Empire. Empress Dalnim had established a joint medical research station that would focus on metabolic disorders affecting both humans and Velthari. She wanted Jae-woo to serve as a consultant, bringing his unique perspective to problems that trained specialists might overlook. Will you do it? So, Young asked. Jae-woo looked at the message again, then at a photo of Hye-jin on his desk. His daughter was healthy now, running and playing like any normal 8-year-old thanks to the combination of human medicine and Velthari technology. Yes, he said, because sometimes a mechanic's eyes see things that others miss, and because every child, human or alien, deserves a chance to be healthy. The story that had begun with a failing ship and a dying empress had become something much larger. The first step toward a future where 2 species could work together, each contributing their unique strengths to solve problems that neither could handle alone. And it had all started because a father refused to accept that there was nothing more that could be done.